What is going on, everybody? It's JetsCentral coming back with the NFL weekly picks, and in this one, we're going to be doing the Week 2 picks, and I'm joined by my good buddy, Chris, the entertainer. What's going on, man?
What's popping, JetsCentral? Last week we had a lot of surprises. Two that stood out to me were the Saints getting beat at home against the Bucks and Miami, the whole Miami-Tennessee game. Tennessee going to Miami on the road, but I think we both agreed Tennessee was going to win that pretty easily.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, my record was 8-7-1 last year. I know it's a weird record, but in my book, that's absolutely awful. You know, I need to be my goal for this week is 14-2. Okay, so like I need definitely take a huge step forward. And you were 9-6-1, so you did do better than me, but it's still not great. You know, I mean, I know you might think that's good, but in my book,
If we were picking against the spread, 9-6-1 would be great. But when you're just picking winners, I'm striving in a 16-game week. I'm striving for at least 12 wins, 11 to 12 wins minimum.
Right. So yeah, let's hop right into week 2, into this week's pick. So number 1, we got Baltimore at the Cincinnati Bengals, Thursday Night Football.
Yeah, this should be a good one. A good divisional matchup. Cincinnati impressed me last week. Very good football team, but a lot better than I thought they would be coming out of the gate. Baltimore, of course, destroyed Buffalo. 47-3. Defense looked fantastic. They created multiple turnovers, 6 sacks, this, that, the other thing. I think these two teams are very evenly matched. I know last year Cincinnati lost at home, and they actually won in Baltimore. But in this matchup, I am going to go with the home team. Only reason is because they're at home. I think both teams are very close.
Right, yeah, like you just said, Baltimore played the Bengals really, really tough last year in Cincinnati. I believe the final score was 20-0. So I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. They made a statement on week 1, beating down Buffalo by such a huge margin. I think by 40 points or something crazy. I think Baltimore is going to be a pretty good team this year, and I never really feel confident picking Andy Dalton in primetime matchups. I've just never felt good doing that. So
that's a good point.
I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, very good. Next game, we got another divisional matchup. This should be a good one. Carolina at Atlanta, 2 of the better teams in the league this year. Go ahead.
Yeah, man, I'm going with Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. I thought the Panthers looked really, really good last week against the Dallas Cowboys, whereas the Falcons, they just looked a little bit shaky. And, yeah, it's the home opener for the Falcons, but I think Cam Newton, that defense, they travel really well on the road. Now, I will say – they did lose Greg Olsen, and I'm not sure what's going on with Luke Kuechly. I have to look at the injury report because obviously that's not out yet. But those are 2 key pieces. Okay, Greg Olsen's for sure not going to be playing. But if I'm Carolina, you got to play good defense, and I'm rolling with the Panthers.
I'm exactly what you just said. Those are 2 potential key injuries, but I'm still going with Carolina. I was very impressed with how they looked week 1. They stuffed Dallas. They held Dallas to only 8 points. Atlanta looks sloppy. Matt Ryan looks sloppy. He didn't play that well. Granted, the Eagles have a very good defense. But you know what? And I know Atlanta tends to be better at home offensively. I just like Carolina. I think Carolina is a better football team this year. So I'm going with Carolina. I think they're going to be able – I think McCaffrey's going to have a much better game this week than he had week 1. I think they're going to be able to pound the rock, control the clock, and I think they'll beat the Falcons.
Yeah, I actually had the Carolina Panthers winning the NFC South. So let's see how that – whole division plays out. But moving on to the next game, we have the LA Chargers going up against the Buffalo Bills. Chris, who you rolling with?
I'm going with another road team. I'm going with the Chargers. I think the Chargers we saw Buffalo last week. They looked like they looked horrible. They lost 47-3. I thought Buffalo was going to take a huge step back this year. I didn't think it was going to be that far back. They looked lost. And the Chargers have a very good football team. Make no doubts about it. I know they lost to the Chiefs week 1. Chiefs were one of the top 5-6 teams in football this year. So, Chargers, I think they go on the road. I think they go up north to Buffalo. I think they come out with the victory. I think they do it by at least 10 points.
Yeah, I'm going with the Chargers as well. I mean, I just look at the defensive ends for the Chargers, Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. Both of those guys are absolute, A-plus players. And looking at the Buffalo Bills offensive line, it's weak to say the least. So I just feel like as far as matchups go, the Chargers really beat Buffalo in a lot of different categories as far as one-on-one matchups. And I think this could be a big win for the Chargers. But then again, I'm just kind of basing that off of paper, just like looking at players on paper. But I think if I'm the Buffalo Bills, I'm trying to acquire a veteran quarterback just because, not that I don't believe in Josh Allen or anything like that, because I still do like him. but I don't want to rush Allen out there or be forced to play him against really good defenses like the Chargers, like the Ravens last week, when the offensive line play is just – it's nowhere near even up to average. You know, I don't want to see Josh Allen get killed out there if I'm a Bills fan. So I would try to pick up like a guy like Derek Anderson or something, a guy who was with McDermott and stuff like that. So yeah, man, I'm going with the Chargers.
That's not a bad idea. And I think this week, I think Allen will start this week because Peterman looked awful. If I'm the Bills this week, I am going to pound the football to LaShawn McCoy. I'm going to try to limit the damage to Josh Allen because he is your pride and joy. So anyway, let's get on to another great divisional matchup. Fourth game we're going to talk about. Minnesota at Green Bay. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. Quickly before I get into this game, just glancing at the schedule. I mean, there are so many divisional games. We got the Ravens, Bengals, the Panthers, Falcons already, and I noticed we have a bunch that we're going to talk about later on in the video. But in this one, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings, the road team. I think this Vikings team, everybody's disrespecting them, saying last year was a fluke. Their defense won't be as good. Kirk Cousins is overpaid, and he's not as good as everybody says. I disagree with all that. I think the Vikings will go into Green Bay with a hobbled Aaron Rodgers, or going up against a hobbled Aaron Rodgers, and they're going to go in and make a statement. Okay, I don't think the Packers will be able to put points up on this Vikings defense. I just don't. So I think I'm pretty much for that reason alone, I'm going with the Vikings.
As you know, I love the Vikings. They're my Super Bowl pick just like they are for you. I think they have a tremendously talented roster, and I think they are getting disrespected this year. But I'm going to pick Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to pull this one out at home. I think Aaron Rodgers looked terrific last week, and I think he's going to expand on that. I think they're going to put up just enough points at home. In Minnesota, I would definitely take Minnesota. Divisional matchup, I got to give the Packers respect at home. I'm going to give them a slight win. Something like last week against the Bears. I see like a 24-23 type game.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, so moving on to an AFC South matchup, we have the Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. Who you got?
Okay, tough game here. We don't know if Mariota's going to play, so that's a big factor in this game. Another divisional game, right? And two pretty good teams that we thought coming into the year. Tennessee didn't look too well last week, losing to Miami, who I think is one of the weaker teams in the league. Houston, of course, lost to the Patriots in a pretty close game. I'm going to take Houston on the road, one, because of the Mariota factor. Two, I just think they're a better football team. I'm going to take Houston. That's the reason. I think they're a better football team. I think they're going to win this game.
Yeah, I'm taking Houston as well. I think I look at the Houston Texans defense. I think it's just going to cause a lot of problems for the Titans offense and stuff like that. But I will say this, that the Tennessee Titans they did really well last year against the AFC South opponents. And I could see the Tennessee Titans really pushing Houston to the brink. But I'm kind of betting on Houston to have a better overall game than really what they showed in New England last week. So I'm going with the Texans.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game, but I agree with you. I think Houston's going to pull it out. Next game we got at home, New Orleans against Cleveland. Go ahead.
This was actually I picked the Saints, but this was actually one of the tougher games for me to pick out of this whole thing because I really think that Cleveland, with Tyrod Taylor playing indoors this week, in the Superdome, obviously, I think the Browns offense will put up a lot more points than they did last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm going with the Saints just from the simple fact that Drew Brees plays really well at home. They dropped 40 last week against Tampa, and I think they're probably going to be doing the same against this Browns defense. But I'd watch out for Myles Garrett off the blind side. So, but at the end of the day, I still believe that the Saints are going to win this game, so I'm rolling with them.
This is a must. If they lose this game, their season's over. The Saints have to win this game. You cannot start 0-2 and lose 2 home games to start the season, right? They only have 6 home games remaining on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me add to that real quick. And you're also losing to the 2 teams that everybody thinks suck, too.
Yeah.
You haven't even played any hard teams.
Yeah, these were supposed to be your 2 gimmies. After the upset to the Bucs last week, panic mode has to be setting in New Orleans. They have to win this football game. If they lose this game, this season's over. And because of that, I think Cleveland's going to keep it close. I don't think Cleveland's a joke this year. We saw that last week against Pittsburgh. I see it like a 31-21, 31-24 type game. But I think the Saints come out on top at home. They have to win this game.
Right on.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so moving on to the next one, AFC East matchup. We got the Miami Dolphins at my New York Jets. Chris, what are your thoughts?
Another great rivalry game, and my both teams coming off a win. We didn't expect that. We picked against both these teams. This is your team, and I'm going with your team this week. I think the Jets look terrific. I think Darnold looked great. I was so impressed with Darnold's mobility. I did not expect that, and he's got a rocket for an arm. This guy's a bright future in the NFL, and I'm a little jealous that the Giants passed up on him. I'm not going to lie about that. I love Barkley, but Darnold looks like the real deal in the NFL. I think you guys are going to have a tremendous future with him at the quarterback position. So I'm taking your Jets home against Miami.
Yeah, I feel like, if Sam Darnold keeps playing like he did week 1 against the Lions, I feel like every time we start this video, I should just thank you, for passing on him, for giving us our franchise guy here. But yeah, I think you made a bunch of great points. I'm going with the New York Jets as well. I just feel like this defense going up against Ryan Tannehill and the Miami Dolphins offense, and it being a home opener too, Todd Bowles and the New York Jets play so much better at home than they do away. And basing it off of last week's game against the Lions, I'm taking the Jets all the way in this one. But I wouldn't sleep on Miami's, especially their secondary. I wouldn't let Sam Darnold throw it 35 to 40 times because I think the Dolphins secondary is really underrated. So, but in any case,
they can't play much better at home than they did on the road. They were lights out in Detroit week 1. But anyway, let's get on to this. It's not a division, but this is two of the powerhouses in the AFC again. Pittsburgh home against the Chiefs. Who you got?
Going with the Chiefs. I'm going with the Chiefs. I bet against the Chiefs last week, and they showed me that they could put points up on the road, right? They don't have to be at Arrowhead Stadium for them to win games. And they beat a very, very talented team in the LA Chargers. So I feel like with Pittsburgh kind of being in a weird situation right now, just coming off a tie against the Browns, Ben Roethlisberger throwing 5 interceptions, and then
I think it was 3, but yeah, maybe it was 5. I don't know. He had a horrible game. Yeah.
Horrible game. I meant to say turnovers, but the Steelers just were a complete mess. Granted, it was like a torrential downpour, but they just looked weird. They looked slow. They looked unathletic. And, I feel like the Kansas City Chiefs looked the exact opposite: fast, athletic, youthful. So I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs.
We disagree on and this is another one of my Super Bowl picks. The Chiefs. I love the Chiefs this year, but Pittsburgh historically is tremendous at home. They very rarely ever lose at home, and Ben is a different quarterback at home. So I got to go Pittsburgh because it's a must-win game for them. You cannot get out – not a must-win, but it's a big game for them. And because of that, their back's against the wall at home where Ben is a different quarterback. It's like the Coors Field effect in baseball. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh. I'm taking Pittsburgh in a close one here. And, I'm going with Pittsburgh.
For sure. So, yeah, moving on, we got the Philadelphia Eagles, the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, going up against the surprising 1-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chris, who you rolling with?
Ryan Fitzmagic last week with the 4 touchdowns against the Saints, throwing for over 400 yards. I do not expect that again. I think Philly has a tremendous defense. I think Philly's going to win this game. I think they're going to win it fairly easily. I got Philly winning this 31-20 type game maybe. Philly's going to win this one. They're going to do it pretty easily.
The one thing that kind of scares me is Nick Foles. I don't know if Nick Foles is going to be able to put a lot of points up in Tampa Bay. But, looking at it, I'm still going to go with the Eagles just because I feel like the defensive line for Philly is just going to do a lot of good things in this game. Guys like Fletcher Cox and whatnot. So I'm going with the Eagles.
Yeah, and I could see and you might be right about Foles. They might not score a ton on the offense. I could see the Eagles scoring some defensive points. I think they're going to create some turnovers in that game. And
Yeah, one thing with Ryan Fitzpatrick, too, as good as he may look, he might look like the best quarterback to ever step on a football field one week. You don't want to hop on his bandwagon because he will break your heart. I know it from experience. Bills fans know it. Everyone knows it. He looks like the best quarterback in football one week, and then the next week he could, throw 6 interceptions, like he did with us against Kansas City.
Right. Next game we got Colts at the Redskins, one of your favorite teams this year.
Yeah, I'm going with the Washington Redskins. I felt as though the Redskins looked really, really good last week against a pretty solid Arizona Cardinal team, and the Colts were a little bit of a disappointment. Now, Andrew Luck, I thought he played well, but it's just an absolute disgrace that Frank Reich and these guys are making Andrew Luck. I mean, how many pass attempts did this guy throw? 50?
53.
53 pass attempts for a quarterback coming off an injury. That's unacceptable. Okay, so I'm going with the Washington Redskins. I feel like the Colts, I don't want to say they don't know how to coach, but I just feel like they just might not have a clue or might not have an idea of like situational football and stuff like that, because it's not like the Colts were having to come back from a 24-point deficit or anything crazy. Okay, so I'm going with Washington. They're a better team just on raw, top to bottom, just play names on paper, and I feel like they're better coach and they're at home. So I'm going with the Redskins.
You may not want to say it, but I'm going to say it. The Indianapolis Colts are clueless, and it's not just this year. They haven't built a line for this guy since he's been in the NFL. And they have ruined this guy's career, in my opinion. This guy has all the talent in the world, and he's had, 2 major injuries, I think? So, I mean, and last week he goes out there, he throws 53 pass attempts. That's a joke. And they had the lead going into the fourth quarter. It's unacceptable. Should have been throwing no more than 30 to 35 pass attempts. And the Redskins are a much better football team, and they're at home. Redskins are going to win this one easily.
We got the Arizona Cardinals, another divisional matchup, NFC West. Cardinals at the LA Rams. Who are you rolling with?
I got to go with the Rams. They're a much more talented football team, in my opinion. We saw Arizona. Arizona disappointed me last week. I thought they were. I picked them at home against the Washington with them coming all the way across the country. I thought it would at least be a close game. They got blown out, and now they're going up against a much better football team, in my opinion. I think Gurley's going to run all over him. I think Goff's going to have his way. I got the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going with the Rams too. I do like the Cardinals this year. I feel like they're not as bad as everybody's saying right now, but I still feel like the Rams, great defensive line, great secondary. The linebacking core on paper is kind of shaky, but I felt as though they did their thing out there against Oakland. So I'm going with the LA Rams.
Next game we got up is Detroit at San Francisco. Who you got?
Go with the Niners. Everybody was jumping off Jimmy G, the San Francisco 49er bandwagon after last week's game against the Minnesota Vikings. People were so quick to say, oh, Garoppolo threw 3 picks. He looked horrible, wasting money, this and that. But people forget the Minnesota Vikings are a fantastic, fantastic team. I'm not jumping off the San Francisco bandwagon. I'm picking the 49ers in a big, big win.
I got to completely agree. I think this is going to be a blowout. Detroit looked awful to me against the Jets. San Francisco kept it close against Minnesota, which I was impressed with, especially the fact that they would turn the ball over 4 times, and they still lost by single digits.
I know. Great point.
Yeah. And I think Garoppolo cleans it up this week. I mean, we saw what a rookie quarterback Darnold did against Detroit last week. I see Garoppolo doing similar things, especially at home. I got the Niners winning this one by, I'm going to say 20 points. I think they're going to blow Detroit's doors off.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. I was not expecting that. I mean, as a Jets fan, I thought the Jets were going to be competitive in that matchup, Jets-Lions, but I did not think that it was going to look like that. So, I don't know. Matt Patricia has some work to do. But moving on to an AFC West matchup, we got the Oakland Raiders at the Denver Broncos. Chris, what are your thoughts on this one?
It's a good game. These are rivals. Good game. Oakland impressed me last week, actually. They did better. I know the Rams ran away with it at the end. They kept it closer than I thought they would against the Rams. But Denver's my team this year. Denver's my team that all the experts have going with 5 wins this year. I've been saying it from the start. I got them winning 10 games this year. They're at home where they traditionally play very well. I think the pass rush gets the car. I think they disrupt that offense. And I think Denver wins. I think they're going to win a low-scoring game. I expect this one to be like a 17-14 type game, but I got Denver.
Right. I'm going with the Broncos too. But, I saw a lot of people criticizing John Gruden and whatnot after last night's or Monday night's loss against the Rams. I thought John Gruden did a pretty good job. I thought the play calls were decent, and I felt as though they had a really nice game plan going in. But Derek Carr, it was like 0 touchdowns for 3 interceptions. 2 of them were just, what are you doing, Derek? Just complete giveaways. And, I'm looking at this Broncos defense. I think Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, and more importantly, the secondary, guys like Chris Harris, Justin Simmons, I think those guys are going to step up at home in Mile High Stadium. Oakland going to Denver. I got the Broncos in this one.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you on that. Next game might be the game of the day. This is last year's AFC title matchup. Only this time around, it's in Jacksonville. It's not in Foxborough. Go ahead. Who you got? Pats at Jacksonville.
I picked against the Patriots last week. I thought the Houston Texans would have looked a lot better. They came out sloppy. Deshaun Watson's footwork looked bad. He just wasn't stepping up in the pocket. And I just felt like the Texans had a great opportunity to win that game, even though Houston played like crap. And that's pretty crazy, to say that Houston still had a chance. They only lost by 7 points, and they looked horrible against New England. I'm going to go with the Jaguars. I know the Pats fans watching this and stuff are going to say, oh, I'm a Jet fan, this and that. But I think this Jaguar defense is lights out. I mean, you saw them firsthand last week. And this Jaguars defense, linebackers, secondary, defensive line, they have everything. Can stop the run, rush the passer, get turnovers. This Jacksonville defense is sick. And I think the New England Patriots are going to have a hard time protecting Tom Brady. So if the Pats win this one, I'll probably end up picking you guys for the rest of the season because you guys proved me wrong twice. But as far as this week goes, I'm going Jags.
I saw, as you said, I saw it firsthand. And I'm actually impressed with the Giants, how they were able to stick with this team because that defense is ferocious. I took a lot of positives from that game, and I like the Giants going forward because Jacksonville is for real. I think they are a Super Bowl contender, and I think they're going to win this game. I agree with you on this one. I think in Jacksonville, I think they're going to win. I think they're going to hold Brady enough to be able to win this football game and maybe have a defensive touchdown. I got Jacksonville winning this one about 17-14. I think they're going to be a little too much to handle at home.
Yeah, the one thing is you have to limit the mistakes. If you're Blake Bortles, you can't go out there and start the game off with 2 interceptions or a strip sack fumble. You cannot give this New England Patriot offense like extra possessions.
One thing I'll add to this, a big key for this game, whether or not Fournette plays. If Fournette plays, if he doesn't play, I might have a different feeling on this.
Yeah, me too. I thought he was good to go, but, like I said, I guess we haven't seen the full injury report yet. So, moving on, we got your New York Giants against the Dallas Cowboys in Jerry World. So who are you going with on this one?
I actually just came out with my video on this game so people could go and look. Just throwing out a little plug. People go and look with who I picked. But I had a 24-20 Giants. I think it's going to be a very close game, as it always – well, it's not always. Last year the Giants didn't do too well against them. They got blown out. But usually it's a close game. In Dallas, I think the Giants are going to win this one. I think they match up well. Dallas looked horrible to me week 1. With Travis Frederick out, the offensive line is not the same. I think the Giants are going to be able to get enough pass rush. I think they're going to be able to stuff the run, get Dak in third and long situations where he's going to make a mistake or two. And I think the Giants are going to be able to move the ball on this defense. I think the Giants are going to win this one.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm going with the Cowboys. I feel like the Cowboys pass rush is just going to be a little bit too much for guys like Nate Solder and Eric Flowers. I feel like the Cowboys defensive line, the pass rushing unit specifically, it's a little underrated. And I just think that Eli Manning, him not being the mobile quarterback and playing in Dallas, I think will help. It's going to be a packed house, divisional rival, home opener. I feel like this defensive line will get after Eli Manning. And, I'm picking the Cowboys. But I can still see the Giants winning. This was actually one of the harder games to pick throughout this whole schedule. I could see Odell going off and stuff.
One thing I'll say about that, and I agree with you, Lawrence on the defensive end for the Cowboys, he's terrific. I think he's got – I should have mentioned that in my video. I think he's got a sack in like 8 games, his last 8 games. He's a tremendous defensive end. That's why I think the strategy for the Giants has to be to run the football as much as possible to keep those defensive ends off balance and to protect Eli, really, because Flowers looked like trash week 1. So I think if the Giants abandon the run, they're going to get blown out in this game. They have to run the football and stick to the run. If they do that, I think they'll win.
Right. Yeah, man. So moving on, we got the final game of the slate, Monday Night Football, Seattle Seahawks at the Chicago Bears. Chris, what are your thoughts?
This one is pretty easy for me. Seattle, a lot of people think of Seattle as a good football team because in recent history they've been very good. I think they've lost a ton on this team. Their offensive line is in shambles. Chicago looked great to me up until the fourth quarter, first week of the season. And they're at home. This is an easy one for me. I got Trubisky and the Bears winning this one by about 10 points at home.
Totally agree with you. I got the Bears winning as well. I think this is Pete Carroll's last year in Seattle. I just feel like with this offensive line going up against one of the better defenses in the league and Khalil Mack now, I mean, how could you not pick the Bears? I feel like the Bears shot themselves in the foot last week. They were in Lambeau Field. Now they're at Soldier Field. I'm going Chicago.
Yeah, man, and this is a great week, really. When you look at the schedule, you got some top-notch games. This is much better than week 1.
Yeah, just glancing at the schedule, I'd probably say that the Vikings-Packer game is probably the number 1 game on the slate.
Yeah, but you can make a case for a lot. Chiefs, Pittsburgh, the Patriots versus Jacksonville. That's a rematch of last year's AFC title game. Giants, Cowboys. There's a lot of good games this week.
For
But anyway,
sure.
I had a great time coming on, and I want to thank you again for having me on.
Yeah, and everybody that stuck around this far, go check out Chris's channel. The link will be down below in the description box, as well as timestamps. So, I mean, I guess I should have, put the timestamps at the beginning of the video, but it is what it is. So,
yeah, I also figured I would just mention that a lot of people don't know I started a new channel with Sim, and we're going to have you on live tonight. That's going to be exciting. I'm excited to talk about Jets football with you on that. It's going to be about 10:30 on NBNY Sports.
Yeah, cannot wait for that, man. But, yeah, thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Jets.